Welcome to Navigating Receiverships, a podcast from the Commercial Receivers Association focused on building a better understanding of what brings companies into receivership, what happens in receivership, what makes them unique, some alternatives to receiverships, and ultimately, what happens to the business as the receivership is closed out. I'm one of your hosts, Eric Morcheski, CRA board member and CEO of Nimble Strategies. We're here today with Alex Moglia. He's joining us on Navigating Receiverships. Alex is the president of Moglia Advisors. A lot of deep experience in this industry, some great cases that he's gotten to work on, great companies he's gotten to work with. Alex, thank you so much for joining us. Can you tell us a
It's
little bit about yourself?
Yeah, thank you very much, Eric. Very kind of you and very kind of CRA to invite me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about your background and help people understand, how you got into this industry and what you've been able to experience in it.
Originally, I came from Latin America as a young man, went to law school, thinking that because I had worked for a soccer team in management here in the US and went to law school to become a sports agent. But then I found that world was a pretty difficult world in terms of how things are done sometimes in the sports arena. And then I practiced law for a brief period of time with a law firm called Winston and Strawn. And then I decided that I wanted to be on the client side and left that law firm, a wonderful law firm. We're still friends after all these years. And I went into banking, corporate management. And then some 35 years ago, I started our firm. And our firm operates nationally and internationally, is involved in distressed situations, whether they are bankruptcy related, insolvency, out of court related, receiverships, fraud investigations. We do a lot of expert witness testimony in areas of breaches of fiduciary duties and measurement of damages in litigation for purposes of litigation. And we run companies, we advise companies, and we do a variety of other activities, all of them some level of crisis, all of them, all these projects.
And you've got a great team. I know I've gotten the good fortune to meet several of your team members, and you guys have done some great work. We're actually going to talk a little bit today about one of your receivership cases that you had worked on previously, how you got to know some of your own team members, but um,
Exactly.
in the printing industry. So obviously, if you grew up in a certain generation, most people would tell you printing is dead. That's actually not a true scenario here. But
Right.
what was going on that brought a printing company in Memphis to a receivership? What happened? What was happening within the industry or within the company that brought this to you?
This company is very interesting. It operated in pretty much all 50 states of the union, both in the hotel and cruise business, the ship cruise business. They actually were growing very fast, very successful. As is often the case, the behavior of a fast growing company mirrors often the behavior of an insolvent company, which is thin management, thin capitalization, poor planning that often leads to financial distress. And in this case, their secured lender, a very large commercial bank, international bank, was very, very concerned not only about what the company owed it, but how the company was being managed and directed. It was a combination of things, of management problems, ownership, unfortunately, due to health, could not monitor and guide and direct the growth of the company in what was on the surface an extraordinarily successful company because, as you rightly say, the printing industry, maybe on paper, has diminished a lot over the generations, really, not more than years, generations. Specialty printers of all kinds are doing extremely, extremely well as long as they know how to manage their businesses. This company went out of control, and that's where their bank got very concerned. The bank initially had approached us about whether we wanted to come in and act, one of us act as the chief financial officer of the company. And I volunteered to be on a few phone calls, not knowing if our firm would be selected either by the bank or by the borrower. But I volunteered to be on some phone calls, and it became very, very clear that this company was in far worse condition than the bank itself realized. So I went down to Memphis on my own, on our time, on our dime, as a courtesy to everybody, to get to know the company, get to know management. Again, not knowing if we were going to be involved in the project. And based on my meetings and interviews of course, the rank and file employees, because I learn more from talking to the rank and file of a company than I do often from talking with management. It became very, very clear that this was a far more serious situation that the bank ever dreamt of. So I called them up and said, you need far more than a chief financial officer. You need a complete change at top leadership of this company, its operations, and it's extremely severe. And if you're going to work with our company, we ask you that you seek to appoint our company, and we like to have our company appointed as receiver for a variety of reasons. We can go into that if you wish. If not, it's okay.
In wholehearted agreement with you. So,
Yeah,
so on that, we're perfectly aligned.
yeah, no, it's because the one thing I learned in my career is that if you individually have a great reputation at your firm
Mhm.
and people ask you to be a receiver, that's
Mhm.
just lovely. But will others respect your colleagues in your firm as much as they respect you? Because you're the receiver and no one else in your firm is. Well, I figured out a long time ago that I want my colleagues to be as respected as I'm going to be, and to have as much influence as I'm going to have in a project, because all of our projects require team, like a special ops team mentality. It's a group of people closely aligned with different skills and expertises who are acting on a single mission with complementary skills. That's what you need in a corporate emergency, in a crisis. And that kind of mentality is what we bring. And it's interesting sometimes trying to convince stakeholders, or even more interesting, trying to convince a judge. Why should a judge appoint a company and not an individual as receiver? And we
Mhm.
explain that to the judge and almost invariably say, oh, that makes sense. So the entire company can have the same power across its ranks than just the one person. And I think that makes, at least for our firm, it does make sense.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of sales pitches you can use as to why it makes sense to have the company appointed. I mean, everything from a blended rate is sometimes what makes a bank or the appointing party feel better is, you're not using a CEO or C-suite rate or executive rate for everything the same way that you might as a blended rate between junior staff and senior staff. Everyone has a
It's,
different reasoning of why they might like it. You just have to make sure you're giving the right reasoning to the right people.
yeah, and the other thing is, just because someone is new to the firm or young
Mhm.
or even inexperienced, I ask them to tell us what they think.
Mhm.
And I often say to them, if you're going to disagree with me, I'm going to thank you. And then if you prove me that you're right and I'm wrong, I'm going to thank you again. Because it's all about what's the best idea that prevails in any circumstance, not whose idea it is.
Yep.
And once you begin to allow your teammates, allow especially middle and lower middle management and the rank and file, and you allow them to express themselves, to tell us what they know, but often they've been either afraid to say or discouraged from saying. The more you let them, as I use that old phrase, spread their wings, the more young people within my firm to spread their wings, the better quality cohesion you have as a team, and the better result you're likely to have. And you let the younger people evolve
Mhm.
and gain confidence that they too have something to contribute,
Mhm.
even if they ask for additional questions, which is often necessary, because if you're doing something for very long, you sometimes forget to ask the traditional basic questions. And it's nice to have someone remind you about the basics occasionally.
Yeah. So in this case, though, you proposed company appointment. What we know now is that you did get appointed. So talk us about what your company came in to do then for this printing company, and maybe start with what were some of the bigger challenges you saw because you went in and looked first, which doesn't always get to happen, right? In a receivership, sometimes you have to walk in and go, I'm going to have to learn as I run. And sometimes you're going to get a little more information like you had in this scenario. What were some of the bigger challenges you saw coming in already?
Well, we found out very quickly that this company, for reasons that are many, was selling product throughout the United States and not doing so by registering themselves within each of the states. So often it would sell products in certain states, not collect sales taxes, not remit sales taxes. And unfortunately, a former employee of the company would often tell government authorities, state government authorities, that the company was not operating or selling product in their particular state, when in fact the company was.
Hmm.
So the company basically was bypassing the whole collecting, reporting, and payment of sales taxes, which of course carries personal liability to those parties that had decision-making authority at the company. And I'm talking more than directors and officers, but
Mhm.
also who had any kind of decision-making authority on why not to report and collect sales taxes. And those people had personal liability, and the states came calling. And we gave them the names of those people for the states to go visit.
Mhm.
Why? They were doing it before we were receivers. And
Mhm.
once we were receivers, we didn't know anything. And just sending a letter to the state saying, hey, by the way, we've neglected to report sales in your state, file a claim, then this natural questions would have been from those states. Well, how can I file a claim if you've never
Yeah.
registered in our state and you've never reported sales tax? What do I base my claim on?
Mhm.
So what we told them, and the judge approved, the judge really appreciated that he'd never handled a receivership. What we told him is, based on our records, we sold products in your state in the amount of X over the period of Y years. Therefore, I think you're entitled to X percent
Mhm.
or X dollars in your claims. Now, you can fight us, state, if you want to, or you can agree and consent to the number we've calculated, and you'll be part of the distribution. If not, you won't be part of the distribution. And that distribution is only occurring because the secured lender is willing to carve out money for the payment of unreported sales taxes.
Mhm.
So 100% of the states we notified relied on our numbers to then file a claim on the sales taxes, and we paid them.
So none of them challenged you on the number.
Not a single
Yeah.
one, because I said to them, you can either agree,
Yeah.
and this is the protocol approved by the judge, or you can disagree and you'll be
Mhm.
excluded. And the bank won't leave money on the table for you. So you can either have something based on our numbers, or you can
Mhm.
have nothing. Which would
Yeah.
you prefer?
And they had no basis to figure out whether you were right or wrong anyways, right? Like,
Exactly. Exactly, because they had no documents and anything.
yeah.
And we told them, we don't have all the time in the world
Yeah.
for you to do due diligence. File your claim based on our numbers, or don't file your claim. It's up to you. And we
Mhm.
told them decisions are easy when you have no options. They
But
all
also
agree.
you came in presumably, because I know you a little bit, you came in and said, we're giving you the best information we have, right?
Exactly.
You weren't coming in saying, take it or leave it. I don't care if this is right. You were coming in saying, to the best of our knowledge, these are the appropriate numbers for X period of time. Well, yeah, I don't know what period of time you decided upon, but,
Right.
and so you said, we're trying to do right by you. Here's the information we have. Here's how we can rectify that. And I mean, as someone who has gone through a state sales and use tax audit for our company, that I was in charge of the finances at the time. It's not a
Right.
pleasant experience, let
No,
me
it's
tell you,
not.
let alone had you had to do 50 states. But it's an uphill battle on the best of circumstances with a lot of almost guesswork from the state side, even in the best of circumstances.
Right. And and what I didn't want to do is have to worry 5 years later after the receivership was approved, but the judge approved
Mhm.
everything down the road, everything we did. We often took lessons gained from another worthy organization from NAFER, Federal Equity Receivers. And instead of having a 2 or 3 page order that is often common in state receivership cases, courts, we had a 20-page receivership order that entitled every imaginable power a receiver would ever want. And the judge looked at me and said, Mr. Moglia, should I file something? This is so unusual. And I said, Your Honor, the situation is severe, and I don't want to spend estate money coming back to you, constantly asking you for permission to do this, that, or the other, except for certain key actions.
Mhm.
If you approve all of this now, I'll save estate money and I'll save your money so you can spend with other cases. Oh, well, that helps you and me, Mr. Moglia. Yes, Your Honor, it does. He signed it.
So,
And by the way, we took a lot of lessons from my experience as a bankruptcy trustee,
mhm.
a lot of bankruptcy-like concepts, including an automatic stay.
Mhm. So you put that into your order because at the time Tennessee did not have an automatic stay.
That's
Now
right.
they've passed UCRERA, and I do believe there is some form of automatic stay inclusive in
Actually,
what they're
as you know,
guiding.
your organization was coincidentally kind enough to have me talk about
Yes.
receiverships in Tennessee. Eric, I forgot
Yep.
about that. When you opened your
Yep.
branch in Tennessee, you were kind enough to include me in a panel about that issue. And it's all about bringing good ideas to the table. The
Hmm.
old idea of we've never done this before is something that I take often as a personal challenge to then
Hmm.
do something for the first time.
Yep. So you had this sales and use tax issue. You conquered that, it sounds like, in a very favorable way, pretty much for everyone, really, right? In that the secured creditor nev didn't have to come back and worry about whether they were going to have states saying that was our money and coming to fight with them. From the estate side, you didn't leave yourself open to liability of leaving anyone out. And from the states themselves side, they could feel like, all right, he came and gave us the best information he had, and we're getting some found money, right? Because ultimately they never knew it existed. So this is
Exactly.
found money.
Exactly. So do you want found money or do you not?
Yes.
This is a one-time offer.
Yeah, I mean, I offer that to people to pay me all the time with found money, and no one ever takes me up on it. But um, so what?
Well, there will be a time, Eric, that day will come. There's hope. There's always hope.
And so what
Um,
else? You were in this. You've obviously dealt with the states, but you're still operating the entity too.
oh yeah, yeah, no,
Was
it was
going on
great.
at this time during the receivership?
Yeah, it was great. Unfortunately, the leadership, we made immediate changes to the leadership. I terminated the CEO within my first hour of being on the scene because I had already gotten to know him. And when I went on to Tennessee on my own and realized that he was not the right person for the job for many reasons. And I took over management. Some people left, some people in the management, some people we terminated. But actually, the company was suffering for insufficient management,
Hmm.
where everything revolved about one individual, which is always a huge problem in companies where all the decisions circle around either one person or only a small circle of people. We encouraged people. We had them rise to the occasion. It was a wonderful, empowering experience. We ended up running the company a period of time, producing on a variety of markets, including religious market. I forgot because we also serve churches in certain aspects. And then we were able to parcel out the business because it was unsavable in terms of it remaining either A, in the hands of the owners, or B, it needed so much recapitalization that we all sold different parts of the business to different companies that absorbed those businesses. And they kept some of the employees in those sections of the business we sold off. And then some of the employees that were not kept, we immediately scheduled a job fair at the premises of our own company, and notified people in the area who were either in the printing industry or similar industries. And we invited them to come and meet with our employees. And we shut down for a day to just have that job fair so employees could meet prospective new employers. And the beauty of this thing is everyone found a job, everyone.
Yeah.
And it was just wonderful. One of my colleagues came up with that idea. It wasn't mine, which is great to have empower your colleagues. And he suggested, let's have a job fair. And I thought, that sounds like a great idea. And now that's something we do in many of our projects, whether they're receiverships or not. We try to do job fairs so that employees have a feel that they care. We finished a receivership actually recently. It wasn't a receivership. It was quite a dramatic situation where, for instance, we found that the rank and file employees were underpaid. So we gave a blanket raises across the whole production/warehouse floor, raises, because we couldn't afford to lose the rank and file to every employee. When the traditional aspect in a receivership is you cut expenses, you do that, and I understand that. But sometimes a company works on the backs and on the shoulders of its employees. Often the rank and file are the critical. And without them, there is no company.
Yeah, I think it's one of the things that a good receiver will come in and identify who is absolutely necessary and make sure that you're engaging them in a way that keeps them around. Because
Oh, yeah. Oh,
any
yeah. And
insolvency action is scary to a staff member, right? They don't know,
of
they don't
course,
have all the information, they don't know exactly what's going on. When you say receivership, it's typically not a word they understand or have seen before. And
exactly.
less information is scary to everyone.
It's like using the word bankruptcy. You know full well, Eric, that people use a term bankruptcy to mean any number of
Mhm,
things. And we try to use words that are not complicated. We try
mhm,
to use words that are simple, everyday language in a comforting, encouraging manner. Having, in this one company, I had biweekly, all hands, all across the country, through teams, meetings with all the employees. And we would have one earlier in the day for the first shift and another one in the day for the evening shift.
mhm.
And everybody felt important and respected and appreciated because they were. Every single one of those people were important, no matter what their pay level was.
So in this case, in the printing company, you've rectified the sales tax issues, you terminated the leadership, you identified that the company wasn't going to be savable, so you sold off the units, but also found everyone jobs. So
Yeah,
you weren't, one of the things that I think is critical for all people in the receivership and insolvency community to remember is at the end of the day, these are people, right? It's not just ones and zeros on a spreadsheet. And so you've gone through all that. What were your critical takeaways from this? Because obviously you've talked about to me a little bit that this was an important receivership for you. Like in
yeah, I think it was an inspirational receivership for me,
Mhm,
for the employees, for my
mhm,
colleagues at our firm. And the lessons we learned from that receivership is that you appreciate everyone's contribution. Not everyone may be able to be kept on in a project, but that is the case in any company. Everyone has contributions. The question is, within certain monetary economic model, what can the company afford not only to exist and operate, but to accumulate cash reserves? Accumulate cash reserves. Even for the best run companies, they have to prepare for what they don't have to happen. If you go to our website, one of the links is a presentation we made, which we entitled for our company. And we entitled them and we called them 12 Things Not to Do when Managing Your Company. In other words, not 12 things to do, but
mhm.
12 things not to do when managing your company, all based on reality and the realization that people are people and that companies are run by people
Mhm.
and they affect people. Because as I look at my career, do I really remember the dollar numbers of any one of our projects and cases? Not necessarily. But do I remember the people I work with along the way with those people and those projects? Absolutely. Those leave lifelong memories and appreciations.
And you've probably re-engaged the people that really stood out. I know you have because even in this case, I know one person that you you kept
Yeah, I
around.
I like so much. I
Yeah.
like so much
Yep.
that he came to work for our firm.
Yep.
And that's the other thing lesson that I talk about. Often in business, the assumption is that the larger urban areas have the most talented pools of people. That is true to the extent of numbers. But one thing I've learned throughout the country and outside of the US, especially me as an immigrant, is that talent is everywhere, even in the smallest of towns. And we do a lot of agricultural related insolvency work. Even the smallest country towns, you can find incredibly bright, innovative, volunteer spirit type people that have national, if not world class capabilities. And that's often, if you look at it, even the membership of our firm, we're like a little United Nations.
Yeah.
We hire based on talent and drive and humanity. And it turns out that we're a really interesting mix of people.
Hmm.
But again, that was not done intentionally. It's just because we look for the right people.
Yeah. Well, that's a great parting thought. Is there anything else you'd like to leave our listeners with?
I would like to thank you guys again. And yes, one thing that I would like to say, never assume you've seen it all. Always assume that you have to be prepared for the incredible, because the incredible is likely going to happen in the future in your business experience. So prepare for the incredible as well.
Thank you so much, Alex. Thanks for joining us.
It's my
Hopefully,
pleasure.
hopefully things are going well in Chicago for you and your firm. I know they are. I shouldn't even have to say hopefully, but it's a great group of people you've got on your team, and so
Well,
that's a
thank you.
testament to you and everyone really at Moglia Advisors. So thank you for joining us today.
It's my pleasure, and thank you. I say the same to you, your firm, your family. Always delightful to talk with you, Eric.
Thanks, Alex. Thank you for joining Navigating Receiverships, brought to you by the Commercial Receivers Association. Find more information at commercialreceiver.org and catch every Navigating Receiverships podcast by subscribing through your favorite platform today.